The following is a presentation of New Worker Radio. The views and opinions expressed therein do not necessarily represent those of WZML, its staff, or management.
Hello, and welcome to New Worker News on WZML 92.9. My name is Manolis, bringing you national and international updates from a worker's perspective. In our first national news, U.S. Secretary of State is touring Panama and Central American countries. He stated, if there are no immediate changes, that is, to the operating conditions of the Panama Canal, there will be consequences. This is what Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, from Panama City itself, said where he began his multi-day tour of Central America. On his first trip abroad, Rubio made it clear that the foreign policy priority for the Trump administration is dealing with China. Regarding Rubio's meeting with Panamanian President José Raúl Mulino, State Department spokesman Tammy Bruce said that the Secretary of State made it clear that this status quo, that is the operation of the Panama Canal, is unacceptable, and that if there are no immediate changes, the United States will take the necessary measures to protect its rights under the treaty, while adding that the Chinese presence is a threat to the canal. It is important to understand that the two ports at the ends of the canal are managed by the Hong Kong-based company C.K. Hutchison. Other neighboring ports are managed by private companies from the USA, Singapore, and Taiwan. In the context of open arms to bargaining, the Panamanian president stated that there is no threat against the treaty that ceded the control of the canal to Panama, and that the use of military force to the control of the canal is not being considered. While he reaffirmed that issues of sovereignty over the canal are not up for debate, he announced that bilateral talks with the United States would begin to clarify any issues at a technical level. Molino stated that his country could assist in the repatriation of some immigrants if the United States were willing to cover the costs. He referred to the U.S.'s high priority discussions with several countries regarding the management of illegal immigration. Later, statements by Molino became known that Panama intends to terminate a 2017 agreement to participate in the Chinese One Belt, One Road initiative. Rubio's tour will end on February 6th and includes official contacts in El Salvador, Costa Rica, Guatemala, and the Dominican Republic. The Atlantic Council think tank points out that Panama's relations with China have grown rapidly since 2017, when they recognized China and cut ties with Taiwan. This has raised questions about contracts with Chinese companies. The think tank emphasizes that key topics in Rubio's contacts will be the fees set by the Panama Canal Authority and issues like maintaining the watershed for proper water levels. It suggests that the United States has an opportunity to work with Panama on infrastructure upgrades for water management. It describes the Molino administration as a strongly pro-American and predicts that the visit will be positive due to many areas of common interests. However, it notes that Molino was quick to react to Trump's statements on the canal. The think tank concludes by highlighting that both countries have a deep interest in stopping unauthorized immigration. In other news, President Trump's billionaire government partner Elon Musk, who heads the newly established Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, gave new examples announcing that the closure of the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, is imminent, not of course because it has been operating for decades as a CIA sideshow, instrumentalizing so-called humanitarian aid in dozens of developing countries that are harming the interests of U.S. monopolies, but because a purge is taking place within sections of the bourgeoisie. On Sunday, February 2nd, President Trump said that USAID is run by naughty extremists who should be thrown out before any further decisions are made. The staff of executives and employees of the newly established DOGE department secured access to the data of the Federal Payment Approval System of the Treasury Department, but without having the rights to intervene or suspend payment approval. Sources in the Treasury Department, cited by Politico.com, reported that the DOGE access order to the federal payment system has safety valves so that the staff does not have the ability to suspend or cancel payments to various services, but only access the data. The Trump administration also poses uncertainty for the jobs of thousands of public and state employees, totaling at least 2 million. The call of the Trump administration for voluntary resignations has informed their services by email that they have until February 6th to send an email with the keyword resignation. Public and state employees are being lured to voluntarily resign by the promise of 8 months' salary and full insurance benefits until September 2025. This offer excludes employees of the Department of Defense, Immigration Services, Postal Services, and Secret Services. Employees who do not resign are not guaranteed job security or the same generous compensation package. The proposal for mass voluntary resignations with a strict time ultimatum is reminiscent of the one made by billionaire Elon Musk to his then employees of the former Twitter, which was later renamed X. The development is part of the cuts in the public sector, aiming to save $100 billion if 10% of employees resign. The move prompted a backlash from the American Federation of Government Employees, which warned that such a process could cause enormous unintended consequences that will cause chaos for Americans who depend on the proper functioning of the federal government. In other news, an Oxfam report, which was recently released, shows while more and more people suffer from poverty and hunger, a tiny elite is increasing its wealth immeasurably. Oxfam's new report reveals what has long been clear: capitalism does not create justice, but rather fuels the gap between rich and poor. The annual publication of the Oxfam report on the World Economic Forum in Davos once again brings it to the light in a ruthless manner. While the wealth of the already rich elite is increasing without limit, a large part of the world's population remains trapped in insecurity. The report counts 2,769 billionaires worldwide. Last year alone, 204 new super rich people joined them. At the same time, the number of hungry people continues to rise. While a small elite wallows in their luxury, the masses are left with not even crumbs that fall from the table of the super rich. The Oxfam report is based on estimates from Forbes, data from the World Bank, and the World Wealth Report. It not only reveals the widening gap between rich and poor, but also predicts that there could be $5 trillionaires within the next 10 years. A development that is hard to beat in terms of cynicism, because all of this is happening at a time when poverty, hunger, and misery are increasing worldwide, and in a world that has all the resources it needs to eliminate these grievances. The executive chairman of Oxfam Germany criticizes, quote, "The wealth growth of the super rich is limitless, while there is hardly any progress in combating poverty," end quote. Her accusation particularly affects the states whose development aid programs are being increasingly cut back. Capitalism means competition, profit maximization, and the concentration of wealth in the hands of a few. The Oxfam report makes clear what we've said earlier: social justice is impossible under capitalism because this system continually creates new inequalities. Wealth continues to grow unabated, year after year, crisis after crisis, while banks and corporations in the centers of the world market are supported by government rescue packages. Working people in countless countries are on the brink of ruin. The corona pandemic, energy crises, and inflations have exacerbated the distribution struggles that are already inherent in the global economic system. It is not the money that is lacking to overcome poverty, but the political will to put a stop to the system that every year makes a few super rich people even richer at the expense of the working class. In our next segment is a discussion on the role of social media in capitalism. Do I post, therefore I am? This is a question that resonates deeply in today's world, where social media dominates countless conversations, from the well-documented issues affecting younger generations, and not limited to them, such as social isolation, sleep deprivation, fragmented attention spans, and addiction, to the ongoing controversies surrounding TikTok bans and the fierce battle for control over information waged by U.S. tech monopolies embodied by figures like Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg. The influence of social media is undeniable and far-reaching. What stands out most is the growing perception that is asserting itself in the consciousness of people, particularly among younger generations, that social media has become an inseparable part of daily life. This perception goes beyond the obvious aspects of digital archiving and the erosion of privacy that these platforms enforce and demand. More significantly, social media fosters a specific mindset and behavioral pattern, a repetitive, pre-approved template of content creation dictated by each platform. This template encourages imitation among users, amplifying the very issues that social media has been criticized for promoting since its inception. The glorification of the ego, the public display of personal life, self-promotion, narcissism, and the celebration of individualism dominate the digital landscape. These traits saturate our screens through carefully curated posts, viral videos, and content shared by influencers and everyday users alike, all striving to replicate whatever garners likes and popularity. Behind the polished facade lies a culture of imitation where success is measured by the ability to mirror trending content. What stands out is the detailed and analytical description and presentation of where I went and how I spent my time, who I was with, and what we said. The greatest possible exposure of personal life is rewarded, and it is encouraged, especially through an unannounced competition between other users' posts who will publish more details of their personal lives. The role of the audience, the observers of all the moments presented in public view, who appear in the character of an online friend, is largely obscured. The user ends up feeling an obligation towards them, that they must publish more and more personal moments. The reward for the irreparable exposure of personal moments is nothing more than likes and followers, except for the application of a dysfunctional belief that becomes a condition for your existence on social media. This is how the algorithm works, and if your existence on social media becomes a condition for your social existence, then the problem becomes much deeper, creating the right conditions for a narcissistic dead end to put up traps that trap consciousness and lead people to continue reproducing the pattern that gave birth to them. What sells is what gets the most likes, and what is published must follow what sells. The medium sucks you in until the confusion about what is important makes the insignificant, the superficial, the trivial prevail, making it the dominant component of everything that is published. A vicious cycle is created about what is important and what is worth highlighting and projecting. This circle emanates from the characteristics that the medium wants to give to its users. The users harmonize and reproduce the dominant line, which the medium itself imposes. This condition includes a wide range of tendencies and behaviors. It includes those who so-called innocently post real, true moments from their lives, seeking through this process individual reward and social recognition, confirmation of their social role, the publicization of their characteristics, their opinions, and their feelings, victims of constant exposure, constantly feeding the algorithms. It also includes those who choose to escape reality, constructing a self, a persona that has no connection to their real life. This contradiction between reality and virtual reality, the differences between who you really are and who you want to appear when you are on social media, often becomes dangerously chaotic. One could think that the persona that someone creates on the internet is a means of artificial escape from the person they are, from the situations they experience, and from the conditions and social background that affect them. Of course, once they leave the application, they too will have to confront the grounding of the truth, of the real world, even if they try to avoid it or confront it and the problems it brings. It involves the constant pursuit of happiness, a fake good time, the covering up of reality, and the concealment of the harsh social truth. It calls you to align yourself with the dominance of illusion, to accept it as the only proper one, and to serve it with reverence. To feed the algorithms with even more illusion until the user sinks and is buried under the mire of the contested demand, which is nothing more than the perpetuation of the plausibility of a fake reality. And usually, the user does not even realize under what he has been buried. In every version, however, the basis is common, the essence is the same. That is, the individualism, competition, and alienation that modern capitalist society reproduces, at the same time that production for society becomes increasingly social, a process which requires the cooperation of the work of millions. However, the products of this process, the wealth of all of this work, are reaped by the shareholders of capitalist monopolies, who become the mass idols, the models of narcissism. Those who don't know what they have, don't care what their businesses produce, simply reap in the form of profit all the social wealth. The cause of this phenomenon lies in the deep decay of capitalist society, in which technological capabilities and modern means are utilized for the manipulation and exploitation of millions of people. So what is the attitude of communists towards this situation, especially the younger ones who are familiar with the use of social media? First of all, narcissism and exhibitionism do not suit communists. Communists fight in the real world and not in the sphere of social media, in the world that is today characterized by exploitation and injustice, in the struggle to overthrow it, starting with the ethos and values of their ideology, building bonds that are not measured by likes but by trust, solidarity, and a common vision for building the world we deserve, gaining prestige through human relationships in the struggle that do not need any posting to confirm their important social role. Today, even when you don't post, the algorithms of these platforms have evolved so much that the user doesn't even need to reveal the preferences of those they follow through following or liking. It is characteristic, for example, that on TikTok, the user's homepage is configured according to how many seconds they watch a video. The algorithm understands what the user likes and dislikes from whether they watch a video in its entirety or go straight to the next one, and thus forms a comprehensive picture of the user's profile and interests without the user having clicked like or follow on anything. Social media app developers would say they have found yet another way to improve the user experience and be able to give them the content they want or like to see. Of course, storing personal preferences and creating personalized profiles could be used in various ways by business giants. There are many recent examples, especially in conditions of intensifying imperialist antagonisms and military confrontations. The protection of personal data, especially of people who wish to play a leading role in the transformation of society, is therefore a crucial issue. Where should you be as a communist, as a pioneering fighter? Where reality is buried and personal contact is replaced by a double tap on a screen, or where the user with such and such a pseudonym turns into a person with thoughts, real anxieties, and a need to externalize and share them. It goes without saying that bonds of direct social contact can in no way be compared to the mode of contact proposed by online norms. It is a given that social media is a hostile space for what communists are as a whole, for what they stand for everything they struggle for what they would like to see for the new generation and the future world of liberation from the shackles of exploitation. The technological possibilities of social media within the framework of a socialist society that will not reproduce individualism, narcissism, and false worlds could be utilized very differently. Besides, even if sometimes, for a while, the walls of hypocrisy and censorship on social media fall, this came from action in the real world, the intervention of the communist youth, the labor and popular movement, on which the organized and collective intervention of a communist party on social media is also based.
We'll be right back with more of New Worker News here on 92.9 FM WZML. But I want to remind you that every day throughout this country, workers are subjected to injustices and humiliation at the hands of the capitalists, from unpaid wages to mass layoffs. So we at New Worker understand the tyranny that the workplace is for workers. This is why we fight to expose these injustices. Only through militant organization of the working class can we stand toe-to-toe against the bosses. So this is why we want to hear from you, the listener. Are you having issues at work? Bosses cutting your hours or wages? Are you or your fellow workers' safety being thrown out of the window in the name of ever-increasing profit? Well, you are not alone. So reach out to us to tell your story. You can anonymously send an email or even a voice memo to cwpusa@protonmail.com. Again, that is cwpusa@protonmail.com. And check us out online at newworker.us. And now back to New Worker Radio, only here on 92.9 FM WZML.
It looked like a war zone. These were the words of Susan Usilton, a resident of the Northeast Philadelphia neighborhood where a plane crashed Saturday evening. The plane, a medical Learjet staffed by 2 pilots and 2 medical staff, took off from Northeast Philadelphia Airport at 6:06 p.m., heading for Springfield, Missouri, before reaching its final destination, Tijuana, Mexico. The jet was transporting an 11-year-old patient, Valentina, and her mother, Lisette. After the former had spent 4 months receiving treatment at Shriners Children's, Philadelphia, for a spinal condition. Tragically, the plane went into a nosedive shortly after takeoff and ultimately crashed on the sidewalk of a nearby shopping mall, killing all on board. As of Tuesday, February 4th, there are 7 dead. This includes the 6 people on board and another inside a vehicle on the ground, with 24 others injured. Of those injured, 4 were hospitalized for several days after, with 2 in critical condition. The names of the victims were pilot Alan Montoya Perales, co-pilot Josué de Jesus Juárez Juárez, Dr. Raúl Mesa Arredondo, paramedic Rodrigo López Padilla, Valentina Guzmán Murillo, and Lisette Murillo Osuna. Having just taken off, the plane was full of fuel, which erupted into a fireball stories high. Shortly after, several houses caught fire as burning debris and shrapnel were sent flying at high speed into nearby houses and cars and onto roofs. Several cars, which were on the road next to the crash site, caught fire, including the car of the man that died on the ground. The 37-year-old man, yet to be identified, sustained fatal injuries, while his girlfriend and 9-year-old son were taken to the hospital, where they remain in critical condition. Firefighters and other first responders were on the scene within minutes, fighting the fires and tending to the injured. For 2 hours, firefighters battled the various fires at the crash site and several houses before they were finally extinguished. By the end, 7 people were dead, 24 injured, and over 300 homes damaged by fire and shrapnel. The cause of the crash is still unknown, but investigators were able to find the plane's cockpit voice recorder on Sunday afternoon, a crucial first step towards determining a cause. Unbelievably, this is not the first plane crash in the past week. Just 2.5 hours south of Philadelphia, in Washington, D.C., there was another fatal crash when a military helicopter flying at least 125 feet above 200-foot route maximum struck a landing commercial plane, killing all 64 people on board, along with the 3 in the helicopter. An important factor in the DC crash was that of air traffic control. At the time of the crash, the worker on duty in the control tower was doing the job of 2 people, despite the volume of traffic at the airport. This worker was forced to pull double duty, not only guiding incoming and outgoing traffic, but also managing the helicopters in the airspace. This understaffing, regardless of the hand-wringing and excuses from the FAA and the capitalist government, is the direct result of their actions. They refuse to put in the necessary resources to train new air traffic controllers, and yet continue to send billions to Ukraine and Israel to further their imperialist plans. This is because when the question is between an increase in plane crashes, in aviation deaths, or securing new markets and resources across the globe, the answer is obvious for the ruling class. And it is not just crashes. On Sunday, a United Airlines flight set to fly from Houston to New York was forced to evacuate its passengers due to an engine issue that caused one of the wings to smoke and catch fire. While luckily this occurred on the tarmac, how might things have been had this happened while in the air? This is not even to mention when 171 Boeing 737 MAX airplanes were ordered to be grounded last year when a door plug on an Alaskan Airlines flight blew out. Whistleblowers at Boeing have continued to come out to denounce the corner cutting that Boeing has been engaging in for decades, all for the sake of increasing their profits. They are helped by the FAA's offloading of inspections onto airplane manufacturers themselves, only engaging in quote-unquote spot checks of the manufacturer's self-inspections. We don't yet know the cause of this crash, but the trend is becoming hard to ignore. More and more planes are crashing, being grounded, or otherwise falling apart, all while this bourgeois government, being a government of and for the capitalist class, continues to put the profits of the monopolies over the lives of the people.
You've been listening to New Worker News on 92.9 FM WZML, your home for local, national, and international news, all from a working class perspective. New Worker News is the official organ of the Communist Workers Platform. If you're a worker, we would like to hear from you. You can reach us at cwpusa@protonmail.com. Again, that's cwpusa@protonmail.com. If you would like more news from a worker's point of view, visit us at newworker.us. You can find weekly articles on events happening all over the country and internationally. If you've enjoyed the program and wish to see more working class reporting, consider donating to our Patreon at patreon.com/newworker. And thank you for listening to New Worker News on 92.9 FM WZML.